Right. Well, I'll give you another example to think about that, and this would be a thought experiment. If you take a couple of identical twins, and so they have the same genes and the same, largely the same upbringing, and you put them on one on a swimming program and one on a running program, and you let them do that for 6 months, and then you biopsy their muscles and test their bodies in all various ways, and you'll find that their bodies have come up with specific adaptations to those activities.
Right.
So they change according to how they are challenged, and that's the fundamental training principle right there.
So should that overlap or supersede, if you will, all other things, even if you do have short-term goals, saying powerlifting or marathon running, whatever have you? Should that long-term approach supersede some short-term accomplishments?
Well, it depends on who you are and what you want out of your life. But I'd say keep your eye on both. Keep your eye on the long term, what you want to do when you're older, and what kind of fun you want to have when you're younger.
Awesome. Well, I know you've talked about it a little bit, but I want to go more in depth about evolution, and I'm just going to leave a pretty open-ended question so you can go as in depth as you want with it. But I'll just talk about human evolution and physical movement. Go.
Well, there's so much to be said about this, and so much of it comes down to a thought experiment, because you look at the paleo, and there's a lot of talk now about the paleo workout program, paleo diets, paleo fitness training. Paleo simply means old, and Paleolithic refers to the old Stone Age. And that's a period of about 2 million years ago to the dawn of agriculture, which is about 10,000 years ago. So you're talking about a very long period of human history when people went from being just very wild hunter-gatherers up until close to the present day. And you need to use the imagination a lot here, because during that time period, humans lived in very many different kinds of habitat. They ate different kinds of diet, and they had different physical demands on their bodies. And it's easy to imagine here that you may have lived in a climate that was very hot and dry, which would require one particular kind of movement, or you may have lived in a climate that was more lush and wet, which would have required a different kind of movement. Hunting varies. Hunting might require long-distance pursuit of animals over many miles, or hunting might require you to sit in one place for a long period of time. Same thing with gathering. Your food might be distributed over large territories or small territories, and there's a lot of diversity there. So what I'm trying to say is that it's tempting to say that there was one kind of demand and there was one kind of paleo lifestyle, and that if we follow that one kind of paleo lifestyle that we'll become fit. But it's not that simple. There were a lot of different ways. And so what it comes down to is adaptation. That early humans were highly adaptable and had to adapt to many different kinds of environments. So I think we need to get away from a focus on one particular thing. It's like, let's remain adaptable, and let's try and expose our bodies to different challenges outdoors. And that's a good paleo orientation. Go out in the wet and the dry. Go out in the hot and the long distance. Do some sprints, do some long distance stuff too. Do some climbing, do some swimming. If it's outdoors, it's probably paleo is probably good for you.
So I would venture to guess, because I'm not here to start a debate on this topic. I don't believe in the debate as far as CrossFit goes. But you would be sort of an advocate of CrossFit and their philosophy of just being well-rounded, but not so much taking it to the extremes that they take it. But they do some long-distance running that they can combine with short burst sprints and lifting and long endurance stuff. So you'd probably be an advocate of the general perception of what they do.
Yeah, I've seen some good stuff come out of the CrossFit community, and it definitely works for a lot of people. It concerns me a little bit because I see a lot of injuries coming out of CrossFit too. So I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, but in general, I think it's succeeding, and I think a lot of it's moving in the right direction. There's definitely some good stuff, and the industry as a whole, I think, is moving in the right direction because of a lot more interest now in outdoor training and natural methods and appreciation of human history. The other thing that's really important to see coming out of the paleo orientation, when you look at human history, we lived in predator-rich environments. We lived in highly dangerous environments where we were not just hunter-gatherers, we were hunted-gatherers. And our protection against carnivores was to be in tribes, to be in social groups. Mm-hmm. And this is part of what drove our high level of social interaction. I mean, we are hyper-social animals, and we are so for a reason, because that was our primary, our first line of defense to stay alive on the grassland, was to be in groups. And so we function best in groups. Our brains work best in collaboration with one another, and that's why these outdoor group fitness experiences, I think, are the way to go. I mean, we are keyed, we are designed, we are built to be with other people. So that's a good place to begin.
Before we wrap this up, you mentioned that at the beginning of the interview, you mentioned you've taken a couple trips to Africa. Just go on your experience. It doesn't have to exactly be on the physical aspect of what you experienced or saw, but just tell us about those trips.
Well, I was really fortunate because I was able to go to just some of the regular tourist safari type places in Africa, and that was all fine and good. And I went to Olduvai Gorge and got to see some of the fossil museums and that sort of thing, and really get a sense of human history. But I was also able to go out with some indigenous peoples. I went out with the Hadza Bushmen and went on a hunt that they did, and that was fantastic because I could see their physical experience in nature and in conjunction with habitat, and how they would view our our exercise experience. They had their own feelings about how to interact with the world. And I also was super fortunate because I got to go to Gombe, which Gombe is the place in Tanzania where Jane Goodall first did her work with the chimpanzees. And going out in the forest with the chimps was just unforgettable because these chimpanzees are fantastically fit, and they don't have any of the modern exercise devices that we use. I mean, they don't have clipboards, they don't have spreadsheets or heart rate monitors or anything. I mean, all they have is play and each other and gravity and momentum, and that's it. And they are hyper fit. I mean, they're incredibly dangerous because they're so much stronger than people. So that was a real eye-opener. I thought, we don't need anything else. We are born with what we need, and all we have to do is kind of exploit that and go from there. So Africa was really a fantastic place to go, and even if you can't go there, just get your thought and your imagination engaged in that can go a long way to help too.